Alright, my name is Philip, and I'll be representing the negative side, so we don't want minimum wage to raise. First, I would like to point out that she stated a false claim. According to Congressional Budget Office study, it estimated that only 900,000 would be lifted out of poverty, not the 5 million they were claiming. And next, the minimum wage does go to people in poverty, but it also goes to a large number of people who are second and third earners in their family. So this is basically helping a lot of the middle class, which is not what raising the minimum wage is supposed to do. I have a quote from the Chicago Tribune. According to the CBO report, Congressional Budget Office, raising the minimum wage would increase the earnings of low-wage workers by $31 billion, but the report also said only 19% of that increase would go to families with earnings below the poverty threshold, whereas 29% would accrue to families earning more than 3 times the poverty threshold. So that just doesn't seem right to me. An individual working full-time at minimum wage will make enough to live above the poverty line. The poverty line for one person is just above $12,000, and someone working full-time at minimum wage will be making roughly around $15,000. So they're above the poverty line. I have two studies that further support my argument. First, there's a study done by the Council of Economic Advisors, and it showed that 56% of minimum wage workers are either under 18 or unmarried without kids. So these people are above the poverty line. And only a small percentage of minimum wage workers live in poor households. There was a study done in 2010 that found poverty rates were unaffected by minimum wage increases. It also found that if the minimum wage were raised to $9.50 from $7.25, only 11% of the beneficiaries would be people who live in poor households. And then from that same study, 42% would be people living in households making more than 3 times the poverty line. Next, I'll be refuting her claims about the purchasing power. She stated that minimum wage is too low, but I disagree with that. I think the $7.25 is sufficient enough for federal, because individual states are allowed to set their own minimum wage. So states with higher cost of living can set their minimum wage above the federal minimum. There are currently 21 states and also Washington, D.C. that have a higher minimum wage than the federal. We can't look at the country as a whole just because of the different costs of living. I was looking at the 2012 census, and based on a national average of 100 for the cost of living index, LA was at a 136.4, Brooklyn, New York was 181.7, Louisville was 87.7, Memphis was 88.2, and then throughout areas of Texas is anywhere from 80 to 90. And they based this off of 6 criterias. It was based off of grocery, housing, utilities, transportation, healthcare, and miscellaneous goods and services. And then last, I'll be refuting her the effects that it has on the economy. There are 2 effects that come from raising the minimum wage. One will be that businesses will be forced to raise prices due to higher labor costs. And if they don't raise prices, they're going to have to either cut hours or cut jobs to offset the higher labor costs. And this mostly affects smaller businesses, because the bigger businesses will have the money to support the higher rates. And then lastly, they won't be able to invest as much in future job growth. And I have a couple quotes that support this. One from the Chicago Tribune. There were two major effects from raising the minimum wage to $10.10 proposed by President Obama. One would be loss of jobs as predicted by the CBO, which forecast that total U.S. employment could be reduced by 500,000 jobs. And two, an increase in consumer prices driven by companies offsetting increased labor costs. And then lastly, with unemployment Americans' top concern, our focus should be creating, not destroying jobs for those who need them the most.